This podcast is made possible through donations from listeners like you and our partners at Tallman Equipment. Tallman Equipment prides itself in having more lineman tools in stock than anyone else. And now, when you're shopping online at tallmanequipment.com, look for the truck logo that says Fast Ship on hundreds of items on their website. That logo means that item is in stock and ready to ship the same day in most cases. When it comes to getting the tools and equipment linemen need, trust Tallman. Line 11 Clothing Company, making apparel for our first responders with a positive message to patriots that you can be proud of. The proceeds of the cause goes to helping our foundation ignite the fire for father engagement. Give them a follow at Line 11 Clothing on Instagram. And finally, Monzingo Knives. Each knife is created with craftsmanship that only a tradesman could provide. Find them on Instagram at Monzingo Knives and get your American-made Monzingo knife today. Welcome to the Show Up Dad podcast. This podcast is created for hardworking fathers. At the Show Up Dad, we recognize that fathers providing for their children is certainly important. But when men truly understand their unique role and gain the knowledge and skills to be great fathers, they can transform and impact future generations. Today's guest is Kris Paranto. Tanto, as he is affectionately known in security contracting circles, is a father of three, happily married to Tanya Paronto, a former Army Ranger from 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, and a private security contractor who has deployed throughout South America, Central America, the Middle East, and North Africa. He also worked with the U.S. government's global response staff, conducting low-profile security in high-threat environments throughout the world. He is one of the survivors of the Benghazi incident and was portrayed by Pablo Schrieber in the film by Michael Bay, 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. On September 11, 2012, Islamic militants attacked the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya, killing Ambassador J. Christopher Stevens and Sean Smith, an officer for the Foreign Service. As a member of the Annex security team, Kris and other soldiers were assigned to protect operatives and diplomats in the city. As the assault rages on, the 6 men engaged the combatants in a fierce firefight to save over 20 lives while fighting off terrorists from the CIA annex for over 13 hours. Kris and his fellow brothers in arms story is told in the book 13 Hours, written by Mitchell Zuckoff. Welcome to our Show Up, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate that. You got a great voice too. You ever tell you that? Obviously, you're doing podcasts. It's like, gosh, that's almost Barry White, but a little bit more gangster to it. Even more gangster than Barry White, which is hard to do. But yeah, that's all. No, I appreciate it, man. And thanks for the introduction. And I appreciate y'all having me on. I really do enjoy these types of podcasts that try to bring positivity back to the world and not divisiveness, man. It's awesome to be on here. It's awesome that you have the show going. So thank you.
Absolutely, brother. Well, like always, I want to have you open up and tell our listeners about your relationship growing up with your dad, and what was it like, brother?
Sure. My dad, I had a pretty normal childhood. We were lower middle class. I got no complaints. I had everything I ever needed. My father wasn't as lucky. His parents, or my grandparents on that side, they died when he was 1. So I both of them did. And one was in a car crash. My grandfather on that side was shot down. He was in World War II. He was on I want to say it was a B-52, and it was shot down. But so I never got to know them. All I knew, was my father grew up pretty hard, and literally in Spur, Texas, his family grew up with his grandma and grandpa, my great grandma and grandpa. They were literally dirt farmers in Spur, Texas. And if anybody lives in West Texas, and Spur is a little town outside Lubbock, no, you pretty much can't grow anything out there but dirt, and just poor, very, very poor. But he learned the value of hard work, and that you have to overcome adversity to continue on. And he did that. And I saw him, growing up, as far as the past pictures that I would see with him playing football in high school, did very well, got his college football scholarship to Adams State College there in Colorado. And so I kind of wanted to walk in those footsteps. And football and sports and athletics were big in my family at the time. And I grew up on a football field. When I was finally born, my dad was a head football coach for Adams State College, actually. Oh, and wow. So that's what I would do. When we weren't at school in Alamosa, Colorado, which is a very, very small town on the New Mexico, Colorado border. I was at the football field. I was catching punts with the punt from the punters. I was going out there and running routes for the quarterbacks, and I was playing ball boy. And honestly, I had a blast. I had a lot of fun just hanging around the college and hanging around that atmosphere. And then as we grew up, my dad got to go to Division I levels, first Brigham Young University, and then as an assistant coach, and then Oregon State University as assistant coach. My childhood was spent a lot on those college campuses, particularly around the football teams. And I was blessed because I got to see leadership, and coaches back in those days, especially at Brigham Young University, where they had Coach Lavelle Edwards, which they don't make guys like that anymore. Coaches aren't like that anymore with class and dignity. You don't see them. But me being around there and seeing how, my dad also acted, which was treated these kids, which they were, with class and dignity, but gave them discipline when they needed to. And that was during those national championship days. It was, I don't know if I was really understanding that I was grabbing all of it. Maybe it was by the process of osmosis of just being around him. But, I was around guys like Jim McMahon and Steve Young and Robbie Bosco and these national championship teams. And, to me, the norm was never giving up and never quitting and working your tail off. But then as seeing my father, as he coached his guys, and he coached a linebacker that went and played for the Redskins, that was very good. It did translate back at home, because I saw that where he was giving kids respect, but also discipline. And I got that same thing at home, where, I was treated I was treated fairly. And I wasn't, there was no problems with me and dad. Mom and dad, and especially since we're talking about dad, I never got beat. I never got disciplined where I didn't deserve the discipline.
Yeah.
It was very fair. But I was also taught, and being around those college campuses and then at home with my father, I was also taught manners. And that was huge back then. Manners. You say sir, and that's West Texas. What do you think? You say sir and ma'am. You say thank you. You say please. You hold, chivalry's not dead. You hold the door open. I mean, I remember that growing up with watch you holding the door open for your mom. Dad, because I'm 6. I mean, I didn't say that, but I'm thinking in my head, I just didn't know that, but that became the norm.
Yeah.
And honestly, it translated into having discipline and more manners, which led to, I think, more integrity within myself growing up. And so, growing up with my dad, it was a very positive experience. We do the normal things that kids back then do, and I think they still should do today. And you see a lot of them. I live in the Midwest. You still see that around here. Yeah. I don't know if you see that in other parts of the country, but definitely down here, playing catch in the afternoon. I remember being in Alamosa, Colorado, learning my first over-the-head football catch where my dad threw with those Nerf footballs, and thinking, man, that was awesome. I want to do that again. And just going out and having fun with dad, playing wiffle ball out front, or playing, going and him let me do some little pepper into one of the batting cages. We're hitting the peppers where throw the ball and I hit it in the batting cage, and just playing and having a good time. And but the discipline was still always there, and it was there for my mom too. I have a Latina mama, she's Mexican, and Latino mamas don't play around, so no. There's this discipline. But on my dad's side, the discipline was there, and the work ethic I saw was always there, and it translated. And even from my grandfather, who was a picker and came over and then started as a picker, then got his own farm, and I grew up on his farm when we were in Delta, Colorado, seeing that on my grandfather's side as well. Seeing that it's just that hard work ethic and the manners that to me were the norm, that you don't really see that nowadays. I try to teach that with my kids, but it's something that was instilled in me. And I do believe it made me stronger growing up, because it gave me a little bit of humility, which we all need. But it also showed, hey, these are the right things to do to have, just to have some integrity and the importance of integrity. And it was tremendous. It was just a tremendous childhood that was, to me, was, I think, typically normal back then. I don't know if that's the norm now, but it was. And they were, they allowed me to go out and do things on my own. Ride my motorcycle out in the middle of acreage for an hour or two, not being supervised, or taking my dog and going down the Rio Grande River and, fishing by myself, when I'm 11. And 10 and 11 years old, that you just don't see nowadays a whole bunch. But I think a lot of it had to do is because I did take on and really did believe in that, the values of having integrity and having the manners, and also knowing that knowing that I could take care of myself, which I think a lot of that ties into all those manners and respect that you're giving to your elders. When they give it back to you, you gain that confidence. And elders, especially, I'll tell you right now, I'm an elder right now. When a child or somebody that's an adolescent says please or sir or hold the door open for me, I look at that like, wow, that is huge. That's amazing that you're doing that. And I look at that child and watch them and just see how they act. And normally they're acting with a lot more confidence, even though they may have held the door for me, they've still got a lot more confidence in their lives, and they're helping their family out. Typically that's at the grocery store that I see that. And I think going back to my childhood, when I was doing it and I got that confidence of that, looking at that adult and them saying, thank you, son, or saying, hey, wow, that doesn't happen that much. Or I haven't seen it in a while. It gave me that confidence just that maybe I'm going the right way, and I can do this. I can live in this world on my own because I'm gaining the experience of how to act out in public. And that was instilled greatly from my father and also, also my grandfather, if we're going down all the way in my lineage. And no, it's tremendous, bro. And him and I still have a good relationship. He's getting up there in age now, has a harder time moving around, but I still, he's still my father, and I still love him to death, and I always will. But I still remember those early values growing up and how important they were. And I'll hit it on again, the integrity and the discipline and the manners and the chivalry and stuff that now is deemed as toxic masculinity. Is like, well, fine, I'm a toxic man. Then that's me right here. I'm toxic. I'm the most toxic masculine man you've ever found, because I'll say please and thank you and sir, and I'll hold the door for my wife still, and I'll pull her chair out. But that's what it was back then. And honestly, that's what it needs to be today. And I think more dads need to do that. And my dad did that, and my grandfather did that. And it did translate down the line when I started to deploy. People, how's that make you any better when you're going overseas? It does. That discipline to do the right thing, and then integrity, doing the right thing when no one else is looking, does translate later in life in whatever job you have. And especially when we're in combat zones, you have to have discipline to do the right thing and to do the job correctly. And it starts at the young ages, and it did start at a young age with me, and I'm thankful for it. I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Thank you once again for sharing all that, Kris.
Of course.
I think it's interesting that you grew up in Alamosa. I remember Alamosa perfectly because I used to go there and wrestle.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Where were we at?
I'm and you might know the coach. I grew up in Santa Fe, New Mexico originally.
Yeah.
And we had a coach whose name was Mike Lujan. He won Coach of the Decade.
Yeah.
And he's a wrestling coach, and I was a part of the New Mexico Roadrunners, and we'd go wrestle freestyle all over the country. And we would go there to Alamosa, Colorado, and we would wrestle in those big in their gym, you know what I mean? And I remember going there, and I remember one night, because I was a little kid, I was only like in 8th grade, I think at the time, 7th or 8th grade. And we're from 7th grade all the way up into seniors, wrestling freestyle. And we had some college girls who were sleeping in the dorm, right? And some college girls came, and they thought it was funny because they're there. So they ran in there and they threw their bras at us and stuff. Oh, dude, it was crazy, man. It was.
Well, and that's Adams State was a huge during the summers. They'd have the huge wrestling summer camps, and they were at that time they were one of the top wrestling colleges in the NAI. In the NAI division, they were one of the top colleges in the nation. So yeah, that was huge wrestling there. So yeah, I don't doubt that you guys were going there doing those things crazy things that happen when you're going to camps. Because I went to my share of football camps in the summer, and yeah, that's you're away from home. You're staying in the dorms. You're in high school or you're in 8th grade, and it's just it's a learning experience. And then you go play all day or go to your camp all day, and then you come back to your dorm rooms, and it's your first experience being away without really adult supervision. You have a coach that's there, but there's no way that one coach can monitor all those people. And but that's where the discipline came in. We got a little crazy, but we didn't do anything stupid. We didn't go out there and go steal a car or do drugs or doing it in the dorms. It was just good, what we call good, clean fun now. And it was I remember that. That's so cool though that you did that. I remember we used to play all those colleges down there. We'd play Highlands, we'd play Western New Mexico. There was another one down there too. And then in high school, we used to play all those teams on the res too. Kirtland, they were
tough. Yeah.
Man, those big boys. They were on that res and the reservation guys, and that was. I remember those big Indians, those big Native Americans. We should, if we're being politically correct, they were, man, that was tough. They're great guys. Those great teams with great games, and yeah, Santa Fe, beautiful little town. I don't know if it's little anymore, but it used to be, man. It used to be gorgeous.
Yeah, it's definitely changed and grown. I remember it being just like so cool, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
just living there in Santa Fe, and then it just blew up, dude. I mean, we have everybody from every part of the world there now, and we don't live in New Mexico anymore. We actually moved to Southern California, and
wow,
yeah,
that's a lot of people there.
Definitely. Oh yeah, but it's amazing in its own way. I lived here 20 years ago when I was in the military, and I vowed I would never come back. And God had a different plan for us, and I'm happy that he brought us out here. I trust him,
That's good to hear.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is, you said that your family were pickers. That's interesting to me, because my mom's family settled in that whole region right there, that whole valley from Alamosa all the way to northern New Mexico. They came with the conquistadores, right? The Spanish.
Yeah.
When they came through with the Sephardic Jews, and they came through and they settled in that whole region right there. And I thought that was interesting, because I have an old picture of my mom when she was like maybe 2, and they were picking fruit in Alamosa, Colorado.
Wow. That is that's the San Luis Valley right there, man. And I'm proud of that heritage. I really am. I'm very proud, and I think any Mexican Mexicano or anyone that's a Latino origin that has families that have been pickers or immigrants, to say however you want to say it, that value of hard work or whatever it is, that gene has been instilled in that person for years and years, and it's always there. I know science will say, "Oh, there's no such thing." Well, when your family has grown up hard, and that's what they do every day, getting out there and in the hot sun or on the crops and so forth, and picking out there. That's a gene that I do think goes on for generations, and it did apply to me definitely. And my grandfather, going from seeing him, and I saw him, and then also my father who grew up very poor, just extremely poor as well, seeing them build themselves up until where I got of age, where I didn't have to do that. Yeah, I'd go out with my grandpa every once in a while on the tractor, because he eventually got his own farm. He started as a picker and then worked his way, the American dream, man. He picker, and then he had his own farm. And my dad, of course, who started with nothing and picking dirt out in Spur, Texas, and now he's this Division I football coach. I didn't ever have to do all that, and I admire that. I said, because that truly is how fathers should be. You're setting your sons and your daughters up for success, so they don't have to go through the hardships that you did. And that was particularly, I saw exactly what happened in my life. It was. Man, they went through hard work and they busted their asses. Excuse my language out there, guys, but busted their, so they didn't have to. So I didn't have to experience all that. Now I still did it on the. I got to reap the fruits of their labor. Really, is what it was. I did, and I took that as a father as well, as I am here with me. I don't spend more than I have. I hate being on credit. I don't want to owe anybody any money. I don't want to have any problems that were. When I finally pass away, whenever that is, that I can't say, yeah, I made this even easier for my kids. And that's, I think, how fathers should look at it. Easier being is that you've set them up for success, a road for success right off the bat. It doesn't mean you need to spoil them, or it doesn't mean you need to give them everything they ask for. I never got that. It was that I didn't ever have to go and work, minimum wage for the rest of my life. They put me where I had an opportunity now to step off what they did and now try to do it maybe even one better. And I don't know if I have or not, but I do know that my kids have all that they need. And if I died today, they would have enough, that they could still be successful in their own lives, at least on the financial side of the house. Emotional, that's a different story. When somebody dies, and I've seen, I've been through that before. It's kind of up to you and God, and how you lean on God to help you get through that. Yeah. But as far as just my father and my grandfather and watching them just work their tails off, never giving up, and they never complain. I know my dad's Spanish. My dad's Spanish, but he looks like a huevito, dude. He looks like a white boy. He's a white boy.
That's how I look like too. So we're good.
But my grandfather, no, he's straight up. He's Mexican. Don't ever call him Chicano. He's like, no. I know Chicano here. But my grandfather looks like zoot suit wearing back in the good old days.
Oh yeah.
But I never heard them. And if there was, they never showed it to me. I never heard anything about discrimination. We didn't get what we wanted because of our last name, which is Garcia. We didn't on my mom's side. We didn't get what we wanted because of the way we looked. We didn't get. It was always. My grandmother, my abuela, she would even say, "Man, you didn't get what you wanted, hijo. Well, maybe you need to work a little harder." It was never somebody else's fault. It was, and my dad, oh man, he would say these things too. These little snippets that we get as kids that we bring it on. He just would always tell me, you know what? But maybe don't ever give them an excuse to not pick you. Whenever I didn't get picked for a team or I didn't make it where I wanted to make it, don't ever give them that excuse to find a reason not to take you on. Always go 110% and excel at everything. And then even that person doesn't like you, they have no excuse to not pick you. And I always remember that. And it carried me through the Army, really did.
Yeah.
And that was a golden nugget, Dad, out there. I mean, that was the one golden nugget. I took a lot from him, but that was a huge one right there. It was never give anybody the excuse. And I always use that to my kids, or when I'm out instructing firearms, or even when I was in the Army and I was in leadership positions. It's like, never, ever give anybody an excuse to not pick you based off whatever you think they're discriminate you against. It makes no difference. If you are selling and you're doing 110%, and you're working harder than everybody else in this room, they have no reason to not pick you. And I remember, I still remember that. I remember hearing that when I think I was 10 when I first heard that. And it stayed with me. It obviously, and it still stays with me. It stayed with me up to now. I'm almost 52. I'm 51 years old. And it was something my dad's and my grandfather, I saw it from my grandfather, my grandmother as well. It was something that I took on from, and I still believe in that to this day. And I still say that to my own kids, if they're, hey, did you work hard enough? Did you get out there and do that little bit extra? Did you go to practice? Great. Did you do stuff after practice? Because that's where you're going to get better. No, you didn't. All right. Well, maybe you should next time. And it's never a talking. It's just, hey, well, and maybe it's a passive aggressive discipline a little bit, but it's like, hey, maybe that's why. Always work your tail off at whatever you do. And it doesn't have to be sports. It can be anything. My daughter's a tremendous artist and she works her butt off. I don't know how she doesn't get her creativity from her dad. That's for dang sure. I don't know how she paints and she makes her own stuffed animals. She's 13. And I'm like, how are you doing that? She's like, I just watch it on the videos. It's like, oh my God. But it makes me proud because even if as kids, they say they're not learning and they're not listening or they're ignoring you, they're not. And I was the same way. I would, Dad, whatever. Yeah, sure. I didn't say that to him because you get a little 5 across the eyes, maybe if you, but it was, whatever, it was in my head, like, yeah, Dad, whatever. But I really took a lot of that to heart. And I did because I still remember it 40 some years later.
Right.
Yeah. So, that was the caveats. And I think that was the generation, and I'm a Gen Xer, I guess, that our generation that is that yes, we were taken care of. Yes, we were loved, but we also realized not everybody got a trophy. I know that's a cliche now, but it's the truth. You're not going to win every time. And it's okay every once in a while to fail and fall down. And you learn from those failures and you get stronger from them. You don't just complain about them. Like, okay, what did I, and that was the Army refined that. But initially it was, okay, what did I do wrong? What do I need to do better so I don't hit this problem again? And it's like overcoming obstacles. And that was my generation growing up. It was, all right, we didn't win the championship. We didn't get a trophy. Gosh, that's terrible. Okay, what do we need to do next year so we do? It wasn't, here's your participation trophy. It's, all right, not everybody's going to win all the time. But we have another chance here. Let's learn from those. And I remember coaches saying this. And my dad was a football coach. Obviously, I heard this all the time.
Right.
All right, we didn't win. What did we do wrong? And then coming and watching game film after you lose, which is the hardest thing to do when you're sitting. And I played college football as well. Coming in there and watching yourself screw up on film. And it's kind of humiliating because you're in front of your peers, but you're learning it. So and hey, shame and guilt are still heckful ways to learn. I'm not saying you have to have them all the time, but I'm glad I had some shame and guilt in my lives because I learned from those things. So I didn't feel those things again. But learning and being in there and being like, man, I screwed up, and watching your whole team see you screw up. But then, okay, what did I do wrong? All right, let's use this as a teaching point. How do we overcome this? And then taking that home to my own family now that I do whenever we make a mistake. And so we don't compound that. Where Dad used to say, don't compound the mistake by making a second mistake. Well, that's why we learn from that first mistake. And I remember that always being in my head. And again, that took me into the Army and went to the Ranger Battalion. And then that just really refined all that to where it took it to the next level where mistakes cost people's lives and you don't want to make those mistakes. But having that initial baseline from my abuelo and my dad before I went in the Army, it allowed me to take that to the next level where it was honestly really easy to do because I already had all that discipline that they gave me, all those manners, all those little nuggets that they would give me growing up. And also the toughness of you don't ever give up on anything. You don't quit on anything. When I got to the Army, it made the Army fit like, I was a square peg in that square hole. It was like, man, this is easy because I already have this base. And it was tremendous. Now I said, I'm glad we're talking because I'm remembering things growing up that I haven't remembered in a long time. And it makes me proud to say that, yeah, I was set up for success from my father and from my grandfather, definitely.
And that's good that you said that because as parents, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to set up our kids for success.
Yes, sir.
I like the fact that you had multiple role models. A lot of times as sons, right, our fathers could only give us what they could give us, what they had received, right?
Sure. Yep.
So for me, my dad wasn't really into sports. Okay. He was into hard work, hunting. We're pretty rambunctious. We grew up on building fences and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. You're in Santa Fe, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in Santa Fe. That's hard living out. At least back then it was hard living. I don't know anymore, but yeah, that's tough out there. You got to grind through a lot of those areas and a lot of the weather that goes out there. So yeah, and hunting's huge out there too. So I wouldn't doubt it, man.
But like you, I learned and I gleaned from a lot of our coaches. I had two coaches that came to mind. They're our Yaffle coaches in Santa Fe. One of them was Leroy Petrie.
No way.
Yeah, his daddy. No, his daddy was our Yaffle coach. Him and another guy named Mike Medrano. Great guys. But Leroy, we used to call him Powder Puff.
But I went through the second time I came in the Army, me and Leroy went through basic training together. And then we were at the same company at 275 when I came in again. Yeah, but I'll be honest with you, Leroy was one of the last guys to go to Ranger School. Tell me the Powder Puff story because I really, when we were basic training, I'll be honest, Leroy, and if he's listening to this, I love Leroy to death. Leroy's tremendous Ranger and obviously tougher and harder than nails, but I really didn't think he was going to make it because it's just one of those, man, he can't run. Can't do push-ups. He's just, it's like, what are you, and you want to go to Ranger Battalion? I'm like, are you kidding me? But man, he never gave up. You could beat him into the ground and he would get back up and just keep on coming at you. And that was a tremendous, but yeah, go ahead. I don't know the Powder Puff story. I didn't know that. Yeah. Tell me that.
Well, when we're growing up, right, we're on Yaffle and we were coached by these guys and the team was called the Lobos, right?
Yeah, sure.
And we were always winning the city championships every single year. And these were tremendous coaches, right? And Leroy was the head coach. And then Mike Medrano was the defensive coach, right? And these were tough guys. Back in the day, these were the guys that would tell you, you hit that guy right square in the helmet. He's like, oh, just think about it like this. What are you going to do if someone steals your bike? You punch him in the nose. It's the same concept. You know what I mean? Those are the guys that we grew up with, and Leroy was sometimes, he didn't like to get hit. And his older brothers played for us too. And those guys were tough. You know what I mean? Not saying that Leroy wasn't tough, but Leroy just had a different point of view of things, you know? He liked to think things through, and they're always on his butt, man. Come on, powder puff. And that's what they called him and stuff like that. Needless to say, obviously that's doesn't even have any value anymore because I mean the guy won the Medal of Honor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, picking up a live grenade, throwing it back. I would say he's pretty. There's no more powder puff right there. But that's all such an awesome story because it does remind me of how what I thought of Leroy as well when I first met him at basic training. And guys, I had already been through. I had gotten booted out of the Army the first time I was in, and this was my second stint in, so I knew what to expect. So I kind of could stand back when I had to go through basic training again the second time. I could stand back and actually watch guys and see how they were going to. And honestly, I would like Leroy's. Like, there's no way he's going to make it back to Ranger Regiment because I'd already been there once, and it just. But you know that it really was that. I don't know if it was him when he was growing up that way, but that toughness that he just had and that ability to pick yourself up off the ground, which I think every dad should give their children, and just by example, it's like, hey, you need to get knocked down. My dad used to say that too. Hey, the old Texas, West Texas, you fall off that horse, son, get back up on it, keep riding. Well, that was Petrie right there. But also that's what I think many of us at Ranger Battalion and many of us outside of it that still should be that way. It's like, hey, it was drilled into us at that time. And that's what I saw with Leroy after, as the basic training kept going, I just started to see that, okay, he's got the mental toughness, the physical ability, mid-range. We'll see how it goes, but he's not going to give up. And that's good to hear because I bet his brothers drilled that into him and his dad as well. If I didn't know his family, all I knew was Leroy. That's all I knew. Yeah. But that's how it was in my family. It's like, dude, just son, get back up. You fall that horse, finish the race, get back up on that horse. And it just stayed with me over. Even that night in Benghazi, it was right there. It was there. Don't quit. Don't quit. All right, you screwed up. All right, we're not doing well. All right, they're not letting us go. What do? Take a breath. Keep grinding through it. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. Don't keep moving forward. And it just kept going through my head that night. So God works in mysterious ways, man. I was able, looking back at all that now, it's like, man, he did put me and then put my teammates, but me particularly, just because that's who I remember all my life through all these trials and tribulations for that moment in time. And it was that ability to not quit. And of course, given me good role models of the never quit attitude that I think a lot of Gen Xers have that. And everybody say every generation is better than the next, or no, I should say every generation before is better than the one next to it, going forward. But I do believe a lot of us grew up that way. And I think the ones even before us even grew up harder. And I think it does show in today's society that the never quit attitude and that overcoming and not blaming everybody else except yourself for maybe a failing, not a failure, but a failing, which everybody's going to fail and fall down every once in a while. It's just that's how you learn. That's how you get successful, is you learn from those things. I think I was at least given a better role models through coaches, through my father, through my grandfather, that never stopped me. It just made me stronger. It just made me more hungry. And I think, again, going back to Leroy, I think I would put dollars to donuts. He has the same sort of stories of that overcoming adversity and never giving up. And not everybody gets a trophy, obviously. And sometimes you can be shamed, powder puff, and you're still going to get stronger for it. I think his is a perfect example. He got called names. Wow. Yeah. Oh man, did that let him bother him? Did he go down that hole? Did he just feel sorry for himself? Nope. He went in the Army, became an infantryman. He went to Ranger Battalion, jumped out of airplanes, blew stuff up, went to Iraq and saved a bunch of lives by giving himself up for a grenade that blew off half his hand. Yeah, I think powder puff probably may have instilled that into him more than it did take anything away from him, which is something that we should all get back to, in my opinion. We need to.
I agree 100%. You know what I mean? I like that you said that shame and guilt, that you use it to learn from. You know, a lot of times we use shame and we hide from it, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the big things I see now is people want to cover stuff. Yeah. You know what I mean? They want to put on this mask. The problem with masks is you put on too many of them, you don't know who you are.
You know who you're. I think that's a big problem in today's society. I think that's why suicides are way up. I think that's why That's why, crime is way up. We have no virtue right now. We have no integrity. Social media doesn't help that either. Social media lets you be somebody else entirely. Obviously we call them hiding in your mom's basement, and you're putting on that, you're pretending to be somebody you're not. And social media allows people to do that, but that's not a good thing. That is not a good thing at all. You have to figure out who you are. And if you're confused, using social media to figure out who you are is not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is just get outside and live, and figure out what you like, and figure out what you like to do, and figure out that maybe that's not what everybody else likes to do, but that's okay. And also getting in your prayer book and reading. Hey guys, I hated reading prayer. God's been in my life a lot since I was young. But I went to Sunday school kicking and screaming. I hated going to church. I read the Bible, but I really didn't read the Bible when I was growing up. But it still was in me. And that allowed me to really, it allowed me to have some direction, and allowed me, if I was ever dealing with something that I couldn't handle, I could open it up and read a passage, or I could pray. And I've been praying since I was 15. I pray at least once a day since I've been 15 years old. Once. Well, that's just once a day. I mean, at a minimum. I mean, I may do it more than that throughout the day, but that was also from my father and my grandfather as well. They were, obviously grandfather's Mexican. He was Roman Catholic. We got changed to Episcopalian, which is Catholic light, but it's still Catholic, because we just don't believe in the Pope. It's still Catholicism, but Christianity was huge in my life, and it was always something that I could lean on if I needed it. And my parents never really forced me on it. They forced me to go to church, which what parent doesn't force their kids? Good parent doesn't force their kids to go to church. But it still gave me that, and again, another outlet that if I needed direction, or if I had a question, I had somewhere else to go, and not just go on my Facebook page or go on Instagram. And I still do this to this day. Every morning I open up a prayer Bible and I read a passage, like, okay, God, and that's for me. What do I need to read today? Open it up. That's what I need to hear. But I got that from my grandfather and my dad. I did. And of course my mom and my grandmother, of course, but it was something that dads, again, with manners and discipline, that they can give to their children. So, hey, man, God's got answers. God, just look to him every once in a while. But but they did it in such a way that they let me find God. They didn't, they gave me the okay, this is God, this is the Bible, go to church, listen to the pastor, pick up stuff. But in the end, it's your choice. You either have God in your life or you're not. And I think that was it may have been the scariest thing as a father, my father, to do for me, was give me that choice. But it helped me, because I found God. And I think that's what we have to we have to find God on our own. And my parents allowed me to do that. But having a good Christianity base from my grandfather and grandmother to my parents definitely helped that immensely. And you learn a lot from the Bible. There's a lot of failure stories in the Bible, failings in there. And you learn that failing isn't the ultimate step. Isn't the ultimate step to not accomplishing goals. Failing is just a chance to learn from that and overcome that possibility. You come across that adversity again, it helps you learn from it, so you overcome that adversity next time. But that was all growing up with my dad and my grandfather. And there's a lot of shame and guilt in the Bible. I think it's like a lot of people don't like to read the Bible anymore. It's because they know they're doing things wrong. I did, but I believe, and we can talk about that here in a second if you want to. I know when we do something wrong, and the Bible points that out. The commandments point those out, and it makes us feel guilty, and it makes us feel uncomfortable. And we don't like that as people. We don't want to feel that, and we want to. Everything's always great. I'm doing everything right. No, if it's wrong, it's wrong, and here's where it's wrong. And maybe you need to say, "Hey, God, forgive me for my sins. Help me not do this thing wrong anymore." And you won't, but you have to realize that's wrong, and you have to feel uncomfortable every once in a while to learn, and honestly, to become better persons, because shame is a great self-corrector. It is. And so is humility. Getting kicked out of the military the first time I was in, and coming back home after I was so proud of being a Ranger, and then coming back to Grand Junction. We lived in Grand Junction, Colorado at that time. And it's a small town. Everybody knows what happens. Oh my gosh, that was humiliating. But man, did it not drive me to like, okay, this is what I thought after the humiliation, let that sit in, and howled at the moon for a few nights. All right, I was myself, how am I going to get back in the Army now? how do I go back to Ranger Battalion? Because I fell off that horse. I got to get back on. I got to keep riding. And that never quit attitude just kicked in. And where'd that come from? It came from the base of my grandfather and the base of my father. And that, oh, get on that horse, son, get back on it. You fell off. So humility, and I mean, being humbled and being humiliated and feeling guilt because I didn't complete what I wanted to and started, even though I thought I was going to, and then feeling the shame of coming back home as feeling like I failed. It didn't put me on a track to destruction. It actually made me stronger. It's like, to hell with this. I'm going back. No, I'm doing this all over again. Fine. That's what I have to do. I'm not quitting. I'm not giving up, and I'm getting back up on that horse. Well, it started as a young age. And as a dad, if you don't instill your children with that grit that I got instilled with, they will come home and they'll quit. They'll just, no, just say, it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail as long as you learn from those failings. And I was always given that opportunity. And, you know, you play sports. I think sports helped a lot with that too. You don't win every ball game, but you got to come back every week and play. Or if you're a wrestler, you got to come back every meet and you got to wrestle again. Even if you lose that match, you got another match. You may have another match that day. I got to forget that. I got to come back and win this next one. That definitely did help. And the coaches that we had helped with that as well. But it always starts at home, and it starts at a young age, and giving your children, circling back again, the best chance for success in life. And sometimes that is being hard on your children. That's not being violent. That's the difference. It's being tough on your children, but being understanding and using failings as teaching points, which as a father, now that I am, it's not as easy as I thought it was, because sometimes that anger starts to boil over and you just want to explode. And you're like, no, this is a good teaching point. Relax. Let's show let's explain what happened, what we did wrong here, and what we can do to overcome that next time, and go from there. But yeah, again, I've been lucky. I've been very lucky to have great role models in my life that have given me that courage and that strength to overcome failings. And I've had a lot of them. That second book I wrote, The Ranger Way, that is all about failing. It's not a biography at all. It's a self-help book. And it's like, here, guys, you think your life's, you screwed up here or there. Here's me. Why don't you? And I think it's important, because I want people to know that it's okay to fall down every once in a while. In fact, you need to fall down to learn how to get stronger. It's that old adage, one step back for two steps forward, or two steps forwards and one step back. You fail once, you fall back, then you figure it out, you move two steps forward, and you keep climbing that mountain. But there's going to be setbacks every once in a while. But being, again, a good dad and a good role model is how you help your children overcome adversity and set them up for success. And I was blessed. And I really didn't see that. Honestly, I didn't see that till after Benghazi, when I was able to look back on my life a little bit. I had some self-reflection. And I really didn't understand that till just I would say, it's 10 years, almost 10 years since Benghazi happened. I would say, about 10 years ago is when I finally looked back at all that, like, wow, dang, God, you put me through all those failings, and you gave me this family to teach me, just so when that night happened, I knew how to overcome it and not worry about me getting out of that situation, and not worrying about our team getting out of that situation, and that we didn't ever give up. It was kind of an eye-opening experience. Like, God really does have paths for us.
Yes.
We just need to follow those. We just need to stop complaining and just get on that path and rock it, man. Just keep, and ever since then, I've had some issues after that as well. It's tough being in the spotlight. I'm not bred to be a public. I hate that word, public, whatever. I'm not bred to be that kind of guy. And it took me 3 or 4 years to get through all that. That was trials and tribulations within itself as well. That was a lot of humiliation on my part, but that was self-imposed on myself, where I lived off my vices, and I let the devil get in my life. But again, having that good base, good father, good grandfather, good mother, good grandmother, the toughness, the Christianity that was there, the virtue that they put in me growing up, the importance of having integrity, got me out of that vice hole that I was going through when the movie came out. And it's very seductive. The devil can seduce the heck out of you. And he did for about 3 years, but luckily for me, I was able to get out of it.
I wanted to ask you talked about Benghazi, Kris.
Yeah.
How did Okay, so you talked about how your values and faith helped you and,
Sure.
refining your character and overcoming those doubts and fears that you had to deal with, right?
Yeah.
So you're able to, hindsight 2020, look back and see that all the trials and tribulations that
Yeah.
you went through
Yeah.
prepared you, right?
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. Sometimes we don't see the whole picture, but when we look back
Yep.
and we take account of everything that's happened, we start saying, okay, this was the plan. We may not have had to go through that, but guess what? God causes all things to work together for our
Yeah.
good, right? And He
Oh
will
yeah.
see you through it.
Oh
You
yeah.
know?
Yeah. And that's exactly the Benghazi, that the whole night, getting kicked out of the military, having ulcerative colitis, severe case of ulcerative colitis the second time I was in the military, and getting medically discharged because my guts were bleeding all over the
Wow.
place. Yeah, but that's another obstacle that that was hard to go through, because by at that time I was on top of the world. I'd
Mhm.
gone through the military. I got in again. I actually was been excelling, doing extremely well as a ranger. And then I got tapped to be an officer. So I got my officer's commission. So now I'm a commissioned officer in the military, and everything's going great. I'm going to go back to Ranger Battalion as a platoon leader now instead of just a team leader.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, guys like, no, this may not be what we need. Let's see how tough you really are. And then me bleeding out of every orifice of my body and not figuring it out and getting medically discharged. It was like, well, that was honestly, that was a test of faith to me. I mean,
Mhm.
it was, God, everything's going right now. I met my second wife. I'd gone through a divorce too with my first wife during that time frame, which didn't help.
Mhm.
But with my second wife, and things are great. I got my master's degree. I'm a commissioned officer now. I'm like, whoa. And like, what did and everybody goes through this. What did I deserve to do that? What did I deserve for this? Why did I?
Mhm.
And I did. I did think back to the story of Job. At
Mhm.
least, I mean, man, well, but it doesn't mean I still wasn't pissed. I was trying to rationalize it. I was trying to say, what in the world? Why
Mhm.
why is this I've gone through all that all over again. Why is this happening again? And I still thought back. I still remembered the teachings of never quit. This, to get up on that horse, and I remember being sick for that 1 year where I had a very, very bad case of ulcerative colitis, inflammatory bowel disease.
Mhm.
And it's something you can't ever get rid of. That was also a disappointment. It's incurable.
Mhm.
You can control it, you can put it in remission, but it's incurable. You have to get colonoscopies every couple of years to make sure it doesn't turn into cancer.
Yeah.
But it was just going, man, that's, what do I do now? And still that same voice. Get up on that horse, son. If you fall off that horse, get back up on it. I remember every day for a year, I'd roll out of bed. I was emaciated. It felt like I'd gone through Ranger school again. I mean, I'd lost 30 pounds. I was just laying in, I couldn't move. I couldn't eat anything. And then just, okay, let's do it step by step. Just like your grandpa used to do when he used to get up on the farm and grow them crops, man. Get the plant. All right, we gotta take care of, then we gotta water, then we gotta pick. And it was like, okay, get up out of bed, figure out what you can eat, one step at a time. All right, I can eat that, I can't eat that, because I'd eat something, and if it caused me distress, I caused my stomach to bleed, which would come out the other end bloody.
Mhm.
then I knew I couldn't eat it. All right, do a push-up today. All right, get up and do another. And I felt like I was growing a crop, like I was a crop, and I'm growing myself now. Let's figure out what works for me. And it reminded me of the farm. It reminded my grandfather being that guy on the farm and figuring
Mhm.
out how to grow that. And so my dad, don't quit in my head every day. And after a year, I got myself back pretty dang good shape. And then out of nowhere, that's where I got a call from Blackwater Security. And then I got a second call from Triple Canopy. And that's when the contracting days, the private security
Yeah.
contractors were getting big. This was 03.
Mhm.
And out of nowhere, I got a call. And it was kind of funny. I think it's funny because they asked if I wanted to be a contractor. I remember the Blackwater recruiter, and I thought he meant building houses. And I said, man, I don't know how to build houses in Iraq. I don't know if you got the right number. It's like, no. We want you to come and do what you did in the Army, but you're going to do it as a private citizen. And you're going to work for us, and this is what we're going to pay you.
Mhm.
And I was like, what? And then we were getting paid. It was a lot of money until a car bomb went off. Then it wasn't
Yeah.
enough. But it's like, I look back on it now. I'm like, wow, God really did have that plan. He put me through all that, even as I was doing well, to knock me down a little bit so I could overcome that adversity. And then out of nowhere, he's like, here's another opportunity for you. I think this may be better suited for you. and getting that call from Blackwater and Triple Canopy. And that's when I started contracting. And for the next 10, almost 11 years, that's when I started, was going back and forth to all those countries and helping out with the global war on terror and serving whoever needed me, whether it was Department of Defense or there was a CIA or the State Department. So it all worked out, but I can look back on it now and see that. But at the time it was, man, God, why are you kicking me in the teeth again? What did I do? That old base, that old adage of still fall off that horse thing, get back on it. You don't quit. You get up in the morning, if you don't get what you want, you got to work a little harder. That just kept staying in my head every day. And it still stays in my head to this day. It's still there. It's never going to go away. And I have to say thank you to my abuelo and thank you to my father. Mm-hmm. And of course, my mother and my grandmother, of course, that they gave me that never quit attitude that I've taken now for how many years? I've just gone on for 50 some years. And it was instilled in me at a very, very early age. And we need to do that as fathers. We need to do that with our children. And remember that hard work is extremely important, that you're going to be successful with hard work. Just because you post something on YouTube, you're not going to be a sensation, man. You still need to work hard to accomplish things in life. And you're going to feel good about it, because anything that I've gotten that I worked hard at, I've always felt better than when something was just given to me. Always have. And I learned that from my grandfather big time, and my father as well.
I think a lot of times too, through social media, people see the success, right? Or the perceived success. Exactly. But they don't really see what that person went through. They don't see the trials and errors, the mishaps, how many times you failed to get to that point. You know what I mean?
Yep. They see the end state. Even with, there's a lot of people that now that I speak and I've told stories about my childhood growing up, I see a lot of people like, wow, I didn't know that you had to go through all that, man. That kind of that relates to what I'm going through. Well, how many of those people out there that are showing that they are successful, that don't go back and really talk about what they had to go through to become successful? And what success is, it's a different measure on everybody too. I don't think finances should be measured success. It's just feeling fulfilled in your life and having a great family and having virtue and integrity. To me, success. Money comes and goes. Money's and fame. I hate that word. Because fame should be a product of what you worked hard at. I think nowadays with social media, fame is the end state, where in the past it wasn't that way. With us growing up, being having some notoriety or being famous, I'm doing air quotes with my hands, guys. Being famous was a byproduct of being actually very, very good at something. Now famous is the end state. Going with really, a lot of times, I know we talk about hard work. A lot of times it's not a lot of hard work that gets us there. And I don't think that should be something that we should encourage our children to do. We need to encourage our children to still work hard, and that you're going to start at the bottom level. You're not going to make it to the top right away. It's not fast food society where you go to McDonald's and order your executive meal, and now you get up to the top of the corporate world, and here I'm at the window and now you're an executive. No, you have to work hard to get your way up there. And I think we've lost a little bit of that with social media because, well, you're right. First of all, because all you see is the end state. So a lot of times you don't see the work that was put in, that these people that you may idolize. That's a hard word too. Being a Christian, I hate saying that because there's only one person you should idolize. Right. But putting these idols or these people up on pedestals, you don't know that hard work. Or there are some that have become financially successful overnight. Well, that's not somebody you really want to, I'll be honest, want to be like. I really feel like they're very, I would put dollars to donuts, that they're very unsatisfied in their lives. And I'll tell you what, why do I say that? From my experience in those 3 years, just going on TV, doing the commercials, having that movie come out, having 13 Hours come out. And it was a great experience. It's a great experience, but it really was. But I was in a world where I had a lot of money. I did. I had I had a lot of money, but it was the worst experience of my life. It was I hated it. That was the 3 years. That was probably the worst 3 years I've ever lived in my life.
Expand on that, Kris, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it was because that's all I had was money. I didn't have anything else. I got divorced from my second wife. I didn't have my family around me. I'd lost faith. I wasn't praying anymore. I wasn't talking to God anymore. I was drinking all the time, starting to do drugs again. And I wasn't always a big drug dealer. I wasn't like that, but I was starting to smoke a little bit more pot than I should. And pot, it's not a bad drug. Well, it is if you're doing it way too much just to overcome the pain. I was taking medication from the VA hospital too, which didn't help. And like I said, and I was out there just cavorting around, being just in one toxic relationship after another. And it drove me down that slippery slope. And I did. There was a video, I did a music video for this group called All That Remains, and it was called Madness. And if people see it, it was where a father was, I'm going to kill myself. I have a gun in my hand, and then my daughter runs in the room. People see that video and are like, wow, that was great. You did a good job. Well, that's because I wasn't acting. I really wanted to, and I did. I tried to kill myself 3 times during those 3 years.
Wow.
And how I got out of that again, well, I found God. Eventually I looked in the mirror and I just said, hey, do I want to live like this the rest of my life? Is money that important that I'm going to forsake God and my family and also my own integrity? And it took me a chance to look in the mirror, and I had to do it 2 or 3 times to do that, just to look at myself, because I was so disgusted with myself. But I had to look in the mirror and finally figure out, nope, I don't want to live like this the rest of my life. I got to get back to what I was taught as a child, the values that are important. And that is integrity. All right. That is hard work. That is family, huge family. And I ended up putting the gun down. That was after my last attempt to I had to actually, the Glock was in my hand, and it looked like if you've ever seen the Crying Game, the shower scene was me perfectly in the shower. I'm crying my eyes out, and then getting out and picking up the gun, and then looking in the mirror and putting it down, and me just thinking, okay, and having that conversation with myself in the mirror, and then remembering that base I had from my family. Like, family's important. Family, you don't quit. You keep grinding. All right. God got a plan for you. It does. This isn't the plan. Killing yourself, what's that going to do? You're going to burn eternally in hell. That's not something you're going to do everything that the devil wants you to do. And I was able to put that down, and I reconciled with my second wife. We actually got remarried, and we're back, we're together, love family. I stopped doing the things that were toxic, the drinking. I still have imbibe and drink maybe once or twice a month. I have my own vodka. I have to drink it every once in a while.
Right.
But I don't do it like I did. I don't do drugs anymore. I got off all the VA medication. I do some CBD. I think CBD actually works. It's helped me a bunch.
Yeah.
But really, it was the getting back to the grassroots of what I did, how I grew up, the things that I had learned from my father and my grandfather growing up, and that you don't quit on yourself. And that was the biggest things. Like, I always remember, don't quit. And all of a sudden I got this gun in my hand, and I'm going to quit on the thing you should never quit on, and that's yourself. And I'm like, what a hypocrite I am. I've been living this adage of you don't quit, you keep grinding. And here I am going to quit on one of the most important things in life, and that's myself. Wow. But that came back to, again, that's that base that I had. I don't think if I hadn't had that base of learning from my grandfather and my father, especially that hard work, that ethic, the Christianity, the never giving up attitude, I probably would have done it. I know it's hindsight's 2020. I probably, the chances of me doing it and killing myself would have increased if I hadn't had that good paternal figure, or paternal figures, I should say, in my life. So, yeah,
man, I think it's amazing that you said that. I've never heard that before. Don't quit on yourself. I mean, a lot of times as men, especially alpha males, in the industry that I run in, military and whatnot. Dude, a lot of times we feel so guilty if we can't help our team, right? Or whoever we're a part of, right? That's what keeps us going. It's that guy next to us, your crew, whatever, you know what I mean? But we don't even check on ourselves. We don't self-assess. And a lot of times we wind up quitting on ourselves.
Which is amazing, because we're all SEALs and Rangers and Marines, and you don't quit on yourself. You never quit. That's the biggest, you don't quit to get to the next level. And then you're going to quit on something that's the most important things in your life, and that's your family and yourself. And you're going to quit now. I talk to guys with post-traumatic stress, and I do have it. I've been clinically diagnosed with it. So what? I deployed with it for 6 years as well when I was a contractor. I had it in 2007, and I kept going overseas. It's something we can adjust with. It. Granted, it's hard, obviously, for telling this story. It did have some effect on me with survivor's guilt and things I've seen and things that I like. Man, the what ifs, the shouldas, and could haves that you always think about. But in the end, I do talk to people about tough love. I say, guys, I'm not going to sugarcoat it to you. You're going to have to figure it out on your own. You have to take that look in the mirror. And is this something that you want to do? Is this something that you're going to say, hey, I'm going to quit on myself, and look in your mirror and you say that. If you, obviously you're not going to be able to do that, which is what I want you to do. All right. But I want you to take that look at yourself, and then also look inside yourself and say, have you ever quit on anything? You haven't. Why in the heck are you going to quit on yourself? Quit on yourself now after all this, especially just quit on yourself, period, when you've been taught, ingrained in your head that you don't quit anything. And it was another humbling moment where it was like where I'm looking in the mirror saying that to myself and going, man, what an idiot I am. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm quitting on, I've never quit anything. In fact, every time I got kicked out of something, or I got sick, or I failed at something, I worked harder to get better at it. And now I'm going to quit on my family and myself. And I did have to take a knee and realize it wasn't nobody else's fault either. I put myself in that situation. Nobody else did. And I could have handled it better, but it was a great learning experience, because now, as we've continued on speaking with you today, I'm able to handle the public figure side of what what I am, what my life has actually went that way. I wasn't planning on it, but the public figure side of how to handle it better, and how to sometimes I have to say no, and having my family around, and talking to buddies every once in a while, and being there if they text me or if they call me, but also telling them, guys, in the end, I had to tell one Ranger this. In the end, I was like, you're going to have to figure this out for yourself, buddy. I'm here for you, but it's going to come to this intestinal fortitude. Do you have it? And it's scary to say that, because you don't want somebody to kill themselves, but there comes a point where, as veterans too, you just got to you got to give that tough love. You got to say, hey, knuckle up, buddy. You're going to have to get this done, and you're going to have to figure it out for yourself if you want to continue to live your life like this. And if you're going to keep drinking, or you're going to keep cavorting around, you're going to keep sleeping around, getting in bad relationships, it's not going to change. But once you figure that out and you stop those things and you start picking up your Bible again, things will get better. But I can't do that for you. You're going to have to figure out how to do that for yourself. And that was something I learned from my father and my grandfather. Right. They couldn't do it or anything for me. You're going to have to figure it out for yourself. You're going to have to get better for yourself. You're going to have to work a little harder. It's nobody else's fault. This is this is your responsibility. Now, I guess we didn't use that word too much, but that was another thing that I was taught younger as being responsible for my own actions. And that goes to the buddies that I talk to as well. You're responsible for your actions. And there are guys that are able to get out of it because they fix their lives. They un-F themselves, or they fix them. And there's others that don't. And I've lost a lot of friends due to suicides. I have, or living a hard life where suicide's inevitable. Whether it's driving your motorcycle every day 100 miles an hour down the road, to getting involved in hard drugs where you're doing some hard drugs and they OD. But in the end, man, it comes down to, you're gonna have to overcome it yourself. And if you've had that good base, which I did, and I'm very blessed, then I know I'm not going to give up on myself. I never will. And I've been through that test now. I've overcome that obstacle. I know it's never going to happen again. And I know I'll never fall for that again. I say I'll never go in a dark spot again. No, I do. I have demons like everybody else, but I don't let them beat me up, because I know I can overcome them. And I've been there. I've been there naked in the shower, crying my eyes out. But I've also, man, I just remembering looking in the mirror and remembering my grandfather and my dad, and just remembering them, hey, you can beat this. You got this. You don't quit on anything. And me not quitting on anything, and then bringing God back in my life, and my life just skyrocketed. I'm in an awesome place. I love my life. My life is never better now. And it's not because I got a ton of money. In fact, I lost a ton of money due to bad people, or being vested with bad people around that like to take a lot of money from me. But that's okay. I don't have an issue with that. Money comes and goes. I can put food on the table. I got kids are doing awesome in school. My wife loves me. And what else can you ask for? And that's it.
Exactly. Kris, thank you so much for coming on here, brother, and just sharing your story with us. I know our listeners are going to get tremendous value from this.
Thank you, bro.
It was just so awesome to just hear how you put it back to the basics. And that's what we need to do as a whole, as collectively, as fathers, as leaders in the community. We need to get back to those good basic values.
Yes, sir. You're spot on, man. It is. And that's the simplest thing. Whenever I talk to these corporations, like, man, it is just basics. It's nothing extraordinary. There's nothing that you have to do. You have to go to college for years and years. That it's just your basics. It's your manners, your discipline, your values. That's all it is. But we've forgotten a lot of that because we want to let social media raise our kids, and we don't want to be mean to our kids because we might shame them. And now sometimes it's necessary. And I'm glad I got shamed every once in a while. I'm glad I got my butt spanked when I shot my brother with a BB gun on accident. I'm glad I got it was necessary. I'm not saying that you have to beat your kids in public. No, I don't go that route. That's not what I'm saying. But you do have to show some discipline, and you have to teach them sir and ma'ams and thank yous. And you have to give them the old attitude again, is that you never quit. You always work your tail off to get what you want. And that stayed with me forever. And that's why I'm at this point in my life now where I can actually look back at it and go, wow, man, I got to go through so much life. This is just gravy now. And so I'm very, and everybody can get to that point. I believe they can, if they're willing to take a step back and just reevaluate their lives and see how they're doing. But also give your kids that positive so they can be successful down the line, even if it means a little discipline. And even if it means that you have to tell them no every once in a while. There's not a problem in that. So yeah, bro, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, David. Thanks for your service too, medic. Docs, I love medics, dude. Docs take care of us, Doc. So yeah, I appreciate it, Dave. You're a man.
Thank you, brother. Once again, Kris, can I have you share with our listeners how they can get a hold of you, how they can get your merchandise, your book?
Oh, yeah. And guys, I know it's tough times right now. Save your money. Hey, man, we got stuff's cost so dang much right now. But if you want to get anything, merchandise wise, you can go to my website, KrisTanoParanto.com. I do teaching right now. I do a lot of firearms training under Battalion Tactical, but you'll find that under the drop down menu. And then I have my Instagram and my Facebook page. I don't do Twitter. Twitter's too dang divisive, but my Instagram and Facebook pages are out there, and you'll know it's me because there's a blue check mark by the name, and you just search Kris Tano Paranto, the real Kris Tano Paranto on Instagram, and then Facebook is just Kris Tano Paranto, and check things out, guys. And I'd love to see everybody come to a firearms course that we have. We do a tremendous job, and it's fun, and we have a lot of fun, and we're very non-intimidating. So I want new shooters to come in and start getting in that 2A community, and it's very therapeutic. It really is being outside and shooting all the time is so therapeutic, and it just brings you back to nature. It really does.
Once again, thank you. And this is David with the Show Up Dad with Kris Paranto, telling you, don't quit on yourselves, Dad. And remember, every action has a reaction. Once again, this is David with the Show Up Dad, and thank you for joining us on this podcast.